You have been lied to, not by a stranger, not by an enemy, by the people who loved you most, your parents, your teachers, your community, every well-meaning voice that shaped the way you think about money, about work, about what it means to build a life. They told you to study hard, get good grades, find a stable job, work hard, save your money, and one day you would be okay. And you believed them, because why wouldn't you? They were not lying to you on purpose. They were passing down the only truth they had ever been given. But here is what nobody told you. Following that advice to the letter perfectly, without a single deviation, is precisely why millions of hardworking, intelligent, honest people die with less money than they need. Robert Kiyosaki watched his two fathers live out two completely different versions of the same life. One was highly educated. One never finished 8th grade. One followed every rule society gave him about money. One broke every single one, and at the end of their lives, the educated man died struggling. The man who never finished school died wealthy. The difference was not intelligence. It was not luck. It was not timing. It was not who they knew or where they were born. It was what they knew about how money actually works, and the terrifying truth, the truth that Kiyosaki has spent his entire life screaming into a world that keeps choosing not to listen, is that everything you were taught about money was designed to keep you working, not to set you free. Stay with me, because what comes next will either make you deeply uncomfortable or it will change your financial life forever. His name was Thomas, 57 years old, a postal worker in Cleveland, Ohio. For 31 years, Thomas woke up at 5 in the morning, put on his uniform, and walked his route. Rain, snow, summer heat so thick it felt like breathing soup. Thomas walked. He was not lazy. Let that be absolutely clear. Thomas was one of the hardest working men his neighborhood had ever produced. He coached youth football on weekends. He served on the church board. He raised 3 children in a house he'd spent 11 years paying down. When his neighbors needed something fixed, they called Thomas. When the community needed someone they could count on, Thomas showed up. Thomas did everything, right? Everything the world told him was right. He never missed a day of work. He contributed to his pension every month for 31 years. He kept a savings account that he added to religiously. He drove the same car for 12 years because he was not the kind of man who wasted money on things he didn't need. He was disciplined. He was responsible. He was everything the financial system asked him to be. And then the year he turned 57, the Postal Service restructured. His pension was reduced. His savings, 31 years of careful, faithful, monthly savings, had been quietly devoured by something Thomas didn't fully understand. Something he had never been taught to guard against: inflation, taxes, fees, on his retirement account that had compounded quietly in the background for 3 decades, taking a percentage of everything he built while he wasn't watching. Thomas sat across from a financial advisor, a man in a building Thomas could never afford to own, and listened while that man told him gently but clearly that he would need to keep working at 57, after 31 years, after doing everything right. Thomas didn't cry. He was not that kind of man. He drove home in his 12-year-old car, sat in the driveway for a long time, and felt something shift inside him that he did not have words for. It was not anger. It was not grief. It was something colder than both. It was the realization that the game had rules nobody had ever shown him, and he had been playing it blind his entire life. Robert Kiyosaki would have recognized Thomas immediately, because Thomas was not an exception. Thomas was the rule. Thomas was the system working, exactly as designed. Here is the question that should keep you awake tonight. Why do people work harder and harder and fall further and further behind? Why does the salary increase but the anxiety never decreases? Why does the promotion come but the freedom never follows? Why do you earn more than your parents ever did and somehow feel less financially secure than they seemed? Because you are running on a treadmill, and nobody told you the treadmill was on. Kiyosaki called it the rat race, and he didn't use that phrase lightly. He used it with surgical precision. Because a rat in a race is not stupid. A rat in a race is working as hard as it possibly can. The rat is doing everything it is capable of doing. The rat is not failing. The rat is succeeding at running in a circle. The circle is the problem, not the rat. The system was built on two weapons so powerful, so deeply embedded in daily life, that most people never even identify them as weapons at all. The first weapon is fear. The fear of not having enough. The fear of losing your job. The fear of the bills, the mortgage, the school fees, the car payment. That fear is not accidental. That fear is manufactured. Because an afraid person goes to work. An afraid person accepts what they are given. An afraid person does not ask too many questions about why the game is structured the way it is. The second weapon is desire. The desire for more things. A bigger house. A newer car. The vacation. The watch. The clothes. The upgrade. And every time you get a raise, desire is there waiting to absorb every dollar of it before you can think. Lifestyle inflation. The invisible leak that ensures that no matter how much more you make, you always need just a little bit more. Fear keeps you working. Desire keeps you spending. And somewhere between those two forces, the paycheck arrives, gets divided between the two of them and disappears. Month after month. Year after year. Decade after decade. And the cruelest part of this entire machine is that it was built to look like your fault. When you struggle financially, the message the world sends you is work harder, sacrifice more, spend less, be more disciplined. As if the problem is your effort and not the direction. Your effort is pointed, Thomas. Worked as hard as any human being can work. He was more disciplined than most people you will ever meet. His effort was never the problem. His financial education was the problem. And that was not his fault. Nobody taught him. Nobody teaches anyone. Because a financially educated population is a population that stops playing by rules that were written against them. Robert Kiyosaki had two fathers. His own father, educated, decorated, a man who rose to become the head of education for the entire state of Hawaii, believed in the traditional path with his whole heart: study, work, save, trust the system. His father lived by those principles completely and faithfully. His best friend's father, a man who never completed his formal education, believed in something entirely different. He believed that money was a subject, like mathematics or history, that could be studied, understood, and mastered. He believed that financial intelligence was a skill, not a talent, something built, not inherited. Kiyosaki watched these two men from the time he was 9 years old. He watched one accumulate degrees and struggle. He watched one accumulate assets and thrive. And as a young man, he made a decision that would rewrite the rest of his life. He decided to learn what his rich dad knew, not in a classroom, not from a textbook written by people who had never built wealth themselves, but from a man who was actually building it in real time and was willing to show a young boy how it was done. And the first lesson his rich dad taught him was the one that cracked everything open. He said, "The poor and the middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them." 6 words that contain the entire difference between financial freedom and the treadmill. The poor and middle class work for money. The rich make money work for them. Thomas worked for money for 31 years. His money sat in a savings account and a pension, working for the bank, working for the government, working for fund managers, while Thomas himself did the labor. He gave his time, his body, his years, and what he got in return was just enough to keep going, just enough to justify coming back tomorrow. Kiyosaki did not accept that arrangement, and the moment he truly understood what his rich dad was teaching him, the moment that idea moved from his head to his bones, everything changed. Not immediately, not without failure, not without confusion and setback in the long, painful process of unlearning 30 years of wrong thinking. But the direction changed. And direction sustained long enough changes everything. So let me give you the lessons, the ones Kiyosaki spent his life teaching, the ones that Thomas deserved to know at 22 instead of discovering at 57. The first truth: your house is not an asset. This will make some of you angry. Kiyosaki knew it would. He said it anyway, loudly, repeatedly, for decades, because it is true and because nobody else was willing to say it. The traditional definition of an asset is anything of value you own. But Kiyosaki introduced a definition that changes everything. An asset is something that puts money into your pocket. A liability is something that takes money out. By that definition, your house, your car, your boat, your jewelry, these are liabilities. They cost you money every single month in mortgage payments, taxes, maintenance, and insurance. The bank that holds your mortgage and that house is their asset. Not yours. Not until it is paid off. Not until it generates income. This does not mean home ownership is wrong. It means that calling your home an asset while ignoring actual income-generating assets is the misunderstanding that keeps the treadmill spinning. The second truth: financial education is the foundation everything else is built on. Kiyosaki did not become wealthy because he was lucky or brilliant or uniquely gifted. He became wealthy because he studied money the way a surgeon studies anatomy. He understood tax law. He understood how corporations protect wealth. He understood the difference between earned income, portfolio income, and passive income, and why the tax system treats them so radically differently. He understood compound interest, working for him through investments, rather than against him through debt. This knowledge is available to everyone. It is not secret. It is not locked behind wealth or privilege. It is simply not taught. And the most powerful financial decision you can make today is not which stock to buy or which property to invest in. It is to begin relentlessly and urgently educating yourself about how money actually works. The third truth: work to learn, not just to earn. This was the lesson Kiyosaki said most people missed entirely. When he was young, his rich dad encouraged him to work jobs, not for the salary but for the skills: sales, marketing, accounting, management, law, leadership. Each skill acquired was a tool that compounded over time, creating a person capable of building and sustaining wealth rather than simply receiving a paycheck. Thomas knew one skill, one role, one institution. When that institution changed, he had nothing to leverage. The person with multiple skills in multiple domains is not just more employable, they are more dangerous in the marketplace. They see opportunities others miss. They build things others cannot. Every year you spend working only for a paycheck, without intentionally acquiring skills that serve your financial future, is a year of compound interest you will never get back. The fourth truth: the rich don't work for money and they build systems. A job is you trading your time for money. 1 hour, 1 unit of pay. You stop working, the money stops. That is the fundamental limitation of earned income. It is capped by the number of hours in your day. The wealthy build systems, businesses, real estate portfolios, investment vehicles, intellectual property that generate income whether they are working or sleeping. Kiyosaki's rental properties sent him checks while he was on vacation. His books earn royalties while he sleeps. His investments grow while he eats dinner. This is not magic. This is the deliberate construction of income streams that are not dependent on your physical presence. It takes time. It takes education. It takes initial sacrifice. But every person who has ever escaped the treadmill has done it the same way, by building something that works when they don't. I want you to think about Thomas for a moment, not as a cautionary tale, not as a statistic, as a human being. 31 years. Think about what 31 years of your life feels like. Think about every Monday morning alarm, every hour spent away from your children, every vacation you didn't take because you couldn't afford it, every dream you filed away because now wasn't the right time. Thomas gave 31 years, and the system took it, quietly, politely, while calling him valued and appreciated and an important part of the team. And here is what breaks my heart about Thomas. What breaks my heart about millions of Thomases all over the world. Right now, today, walking their routes and sitting at their desks and clocking in and clocking out, they are not failing. They are succeeding at a game that was never designed to let them win. Kiyosaki wrote, "Rich Dad Poor." Dad not as a boast, not to show the world how clever he was. He wrote it because he was furious. Furious that an entire civilization had decided that financial literacy, the single most practical life skill a human being can possess, was not worth teaching. That children could graduate 12 years of compulsory education and not know the difference between an asset and a liability. That people could work for 40 years and end up with less than they started with and be told the problem was their discipline. He was furious for Thomas, even though he never met Thomas, because Thomas exists everywhere, in every country, in every language, in every skin color and every background and every generation. The hardest working people on earth, betrayed not by their effort but by their ignorance of a system that was never explained to them. And what makes this moment right now, you watching this, what makes this different from Thomas? Sitting in that driveway, is this you? Still have time. You have right now. And right now is the only moment that has ever mattered. The knowledge that Thomas deserved at 22, you are receiving today. And what you do with it, whether you let it pass through you like water through sand, or whether you let it take root and change the direction of your entire financial life, that is the only question left. So here is your challenge, not tomorrow, not after the next paycheck, today. Start with one question. A single, simple, devastating question that Kiyosaki says most people cannot answer, and every financially free person can. How long could you survive if you stopped working tomorrow? Not how long could you survive on your savings. How long could your assets sustain your life? How much income flows into your life every month that does not require your physical presence to generate it? If the answer is 0, you are Thomas. You are on the treadmill. The machine is running and you are inside it, and the only way out is to stop pretending that working harder within the machine will eventually produce freedom. Begin your financial education today, not next week. Today, read Rich Dad, Poor Dad if you haven't. Read it again if you have, but haven't acted. Study the difference between assets and liabilities with the same intensity you would give to a subject you knew your survival depended on, because it does. Find one asset you can begin building, however small, however imperfect, however frightening the first step feels. Start, because the distance between Thomas at 57, sitting in that driveway 31 years behind him, freedom still out of reach, and the version of your life that is genuinely, sustainably, unshakably free is not intelligence. It is not talent. It is not luck or timing or the family you were born into. It is the decision made today to learn what they never taught you. Kiyosaki's Rich Dad said something that has echoed through decades and continents and languages and generations. He said, "If you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die." Work until you die. Let that land in your chest. Let it be uncomfortable. Let it be the thing that moves you off the couch and into the library, off the scroll and into the study. Out of the comfortable numbness of the treadmill and into the terrifying, electrifying, life-changing work of building something that belongs to you. Thomas deserved better, and so do you. The difference is, Thomas didn't know the rules until it was almost too late. You know them now. What you do next is entirely up to you. If this opened something in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below with where you are starting. And stay close. Because the next lesson is the one that will show you exactly how to build the first asset that changes everything.